Does your house look like this? I know that mine used to. But I wanted to get better, so I spent countless hours watching some of the best Minecraft builders ever. Good Times with Scar, Grian, Nice Name, Low Res Bones, Shovel 241, Jericraft, the loosest of gooses, and of course, B000100. And here's what I learnt in 7 quick steps. The first thing I like to do when it comes to figuring out the shape is to create a box like this one here, and we do that by getting an odd number on every side. So this one's 11 by 7, and that is also just a funny thing that I do is I like to follow the golden ratio. So this is 7 by 11. The golden ratio is about 1.6. So 7 multiplied by 1.6 gets you to about 11-ish. Obviously we're rounding into nearest uneven numbered box. But then there is also one rule that we follow, and that is to not have a box like this. We have the same exact box here in the red, and then we've extended and added little extrusions to every side. I decided that the scale wasn't large enough, so I wanted to go double story and a bit bigger. Here I have my box and the shapes that I've added to each side. Very similar to the other one over there. I've done the same sort of thing, and there's so many different modifications you could make. As for why it's all made out of wool, I find that's just a preference thing. You can choose your block palette and just build out of the blocks you want to build in creative. I find that if you find a shape that looks good and you've made it out of wool, then it will look good when you've made it out of your block palette and your chosen colors. The opposite is not the same. Sometimes your palette can save a bad looking build. Palette is pretty much just color theory, and I learned everything I know about color theory from Goose, and I'll leave a link to all that stuff in the description. To start off with, we have value here, and value is pretty much how bright a block looks, and this can be relative because this block here looks quite dark and then this one looks quite light, but they're in fact the same color. So you can use this to create depth without actually having multiple layers and just have a 2D build. We can also see here, if we change the screen to black and white, different colors actually have different values. It can be quite difficult to tell until you turn it into black and white. Here we are looking at hue, which is just the color wheel. So Rojabiv, red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. Next up is saturation, and this is the vibrance of a block. Looking at the yellow here, we can see that it is increasing in value. It means it's getting brighter until about this point here, and it's also decreasing in saturation, which means it's losing color. On the other side here we have red, and this red is decreasing in value and also decreasing in saturation until about this point, and then in between decreasing in value as we go left to right, and this is like a grayscale gradient. And you can see that this works really well to help us blend together and create really unique gradients. And here we're looking at contrast. So here we have contrast in value, high value and low value, contrast in hue. Again, looking at the color wheel, pick opposite ends of the color wheel for the greatest contrast, and we have a contrast in noise. A lot of texture on the resin and not much texture on the orange concrete. This is our block palette that we've selected. I generally use hue blocks and block palettes, 2 sites that can help with inspiration and just to find that one block you're looking for, and I'll link them in the description too. There is 200 billion 6-block combinations. That's just a bit of a challenge to try to find a unique block set that not many people use. And this is how we've implemented the palette. The tower we can see is made out of stone to make it look really sturdy. We have a little trim on the bottom of the build. We have a nice framing with the stripped dark oak, and then the walls are made out of the terracotta and dark oak planks. And then on the back here we also have the balcony. I absolutely love this little trick with the hanging signs to make a nice fence. So when it comes to texturing, what I like to do is use 3 or 4 blocks that have a similar hue, saturation and value, but they have differing amounts of noise. So that creates little deviations in the texture, but no deviations in the color. So that's what I have here in these 3 examples. Here we have our now expanded selection of blocks. So you can already see sneak peek right here. We use the acacia and polished tuff for the trim, and this one here is for the roof that we will come back to on the next step. This is the rooted dirt and packed mud for this tower here, and you can already see that that makes such a big improvement compared to this. And I also added in these walls to smooth the curve on the tower. The roof of a build is incredibly important. Aspects of the roof are shape, detailing, and joinery. The shape includes what sort of style it is. So this here is a gable, gambrel, skillion, mansard, flat roof, rounded, and inverted gambrel. Over here we can look at joinery. We can see how a typical gable roof joins into a slabbed gable roof. Just a nice transition from stairs to slabs. And then as far as detailing goes, this consists of trims, peaks, and overhangs. Here we have a trim on the outside of our build here. It's just using a different block to the inside as a sort of highlight. This one's very subtle, but there's different ones. This is a very blatant trim here, and same as this one. And then we have the peaks. So this is a sort of Japanese style peak, maybe Norse, and this is just a standard slab peak. Over here we have a medieval kind of style with the fence gates and walls, and a more castle-y sort of theme over here. Then the last thing is the overhang. So here we can see we have a sort of trim on the overhang, where we have a little highlight to add a little bit of interest and contrast. This build here has no overhang and the wall extends up, which is one of my favorite styles. There's no trim on this one here, it's just a single block, compared to this one that has like the double block trim. There's also another way of doing it without stairs. You can use the fence gates to make a nice transition up. Another way of doing the trims, or the overhang, sorry, is to not have any at all and use your texturing and gradients to do that for you. So this build here was inspired by BOO because I learnt this trick from him, where you start off with a darker block and transition into the lighter body of the building. With all of these tools that we've just learnt, this is what our house looks like now, where we've used a medieval style roof with a combination of the sort of Norse point there. We've used a tower roof. One of my favorite things is I used this moss. You can use this, I used it here with tuff. Over here I used it with cobblestone. It just works to show that the roof has been weathered and there's a little bit of deterioration. And I even extended that into the body of the building with the tuff here and the mangrove wood on the stripped dark oak, and even the jungle down here with the dark oak wood. I also added the trims on the bottom here, which I think worked well, and also on the exterior edges of the roof. There is a little bit of joinery here that was a bit of an odd one, so I just kind of trial and error made it to work. So what's included in large details is your chimneys, windows, and entrances. When it comes to chimneys, what they do is they add a deviation in the height and they add atmosphere. It makes it easy to add a little fireplace and maybe some smoke coming off. Creates a bit of life to your build. These are some different variations of doorways and entrances that you can add in your build, and rather than just having a door like this, you can add to it, add fences, fence gates, archways. All of these things work really well, and at the end of the day, this is where you're walking through every time you walk into this build, so it's gonna have a lot of eyes on it. Pretty much just don't build your windows like this. Add a stair on top or a border on the outside. These are really important to break up the boring texture of the walls, and it just adds more interest. It's so easy to add a bunch of detail into your windows. This step works much better with the next step in combination. So when we look at the build here, this isn't the final thing. So we have our windows here. I've used different variations of similar windows. So we've got the copper grates and scaffolding here. This one down here is really simple, just with some shutters. And then up here, these are different variations of the same window using fences, walls, and different borders on the outside. These work really well for a tower. And then we've got our little balcony entrance and a small window on the side there. And we've also added in the chimney here. As for the entrance, it's nothing fancy at all, just trapdoors on the back of some walls here, and it works well to make the door look a little bit bigger than it is from a little bit of a distance. Yeah, so this one is a little bit difficult to show all broken apart, so we'll have a look at the build. This basically consists of lighting, shrubbery, and some other details. You can see I've added a few pot plants here and there, just shelves with like lanterns, some more, like this is a little green balcony, bushes just hung up on the wall, and I made sure to add a little bit of erosion to the wall where I've done so. So you can see on the other side here, I've done the same with this little jungle wood. I've also added in stuff like these buttons. These buttons could be just framing studs, and there's these signs here as well that could be just support beams that are going across the wall, and I've used them quite generously actually. And then on this side here, we've added in this fire pit, which I'm pretty happy with. We have the obviously chimney with the fire at the bottom, some spare fuel for the fire pit, and I took away one of these pillars here that used to be there, and I've just opened it up with a little archway. Two of my favorite details that I've added here, we've got these little roof supports just with open fence gates, and they're on this level too to show a little bit of support. My favorite detail is just down here, a little tap you can get some water out of, and I've added one here on the other side as well. And I almost forgot, I've added some cobweb smoke coming out of the chimney, and so this is where we're up to. I think that making your build fit in within its environment is probably my most important tip. Without this, your building is just going to look out of place and like it's not meant to be there. This means that we're terraforming, we're adding stuff like rocks and trees, and then we're connecting the build with pathways and lamps. So we'll have a look over here at the build. So you can see I've kept the front quite open, and I've used the pathways to lead you to the front of the build. And then the pathway on the left here brings you to this little fireplace workstation, and then we've got another dirt path that brings us to our little horse stable we've added in, and around the side here just simple lighting, stuff like storage and little tool benches, and then this connects us back up to the front. And here we've got stuff like our farm and a couple of scarecrows in there, just to spice it up, to add a little bit of interest. See, the view that you'll see this build from is here, so I've tried my best to think about this spot as much as possible, almost think of it as a painting and how someone would draw this build, because you're not going to worry about being over here and looking at the build because you can just barely see it. You can see I've done a little bit of terraforming. Obviously it's a super flat world, so I've just kind of blended in the terrain around with the wool and moss and added in these rocks. Again, I'll point out one of my favorite things, these little taps. I absolutely love them, and the one on the other side around here, I've got the mangrove roots filled with water, and it just looks like it's a little bit of a muddy spot. And I really love just tiny little details like that, and it just really brings your build together. So obviously this is a super flat world, so let's go take a look at how it would look in a normal Minecraft world. So here we are with the almost exact same build. I did add in a little bit of texturing to even the farm, add some grass and fireflies, just for a little extra interest in that. I've also added this short grass all around the build just to add a little bit of height to the terrain and blend in these rocks a little bit nicer. I haven't done a crazy number of trees, I've just created a very small forest that encompasses the house. And tricks like using this grass just helps to create more immersive atmospheres, just having extra texture, and it's not plain grass like this over here. So that is your 7 steps to building a house in Minecraft. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope you learned a thing or two. I hope to see you in a future video. See ya!